Alright then, let's continue with Super Castlevania 4. I'm going to use save states to keep my place, but not to beat the game for me. Basically, keep my place in the recording to load the save state back up just in case I get technical problems. I'm gonna try to be as legit as possible. Be a failure maybe, but be legit. Now in terms of Castlevania games, I never got into Symphony of the Night that much at all to be honest. But I did rather like Portrait of Ruin, mostly because Charlotte's a huge focus in it. Yeah, I cared more about her than Jonathan, go figure. Bloodlines was one of those games where I just felt a bit off for some reason. It wasn't a bad game, but I was so used to Super NES control schemes that playing stuff on the Genesis was always a bit jarring. I wouldn't blame the Genesis for that, I'd probably blame myself more for that. Although I never liked the button layout of the Genesis controller with the way A, B, and C are. But that's another story. Okay, why did I jump into that? Better question, why did I jump at all? Okay, so apparently Simon's Mega Man. Wonder what it'd be like to go through a Castlevania game without touching any whips. I mean, upgrading whips by touching any candles. Honestly speaking, if you're good at dodging, it would probably just make the game longer rather than harder. Unless you've got some bosses who are immune to the normal whip's damage and absolutely require you to use a stronger whip to beat them. Yeah, I made it right. The sub-weapon usefulness really is downgrade because of the whip. I haven't found much reason to use sub-weapons in most cases. It actually feels like a waste of parts half the time to do so. And there's an interesting thing for you. You know something about stage 2? The boss was in the middle. Literally. Most of the time you have the boss at the end of a stage, not in the middle of it. So that's kind of unique. You stop and think about it. It's so easy to just have the boss at the start or end. But in the middle, that's another story. And that makes, what, 20 stories? Okay. This is pretty peaceful music for a horror game. You ask me. Pleasant, yes, but a bit peaceful. Why did he move that way? Apparently Simon doesn't like living. I shall now teach Simon the difference between left and right. Right is this way, left is that way. Go right. If they really want to be jerks in a Castlevania game, what they do is have bosses at the end of a stage that are immune to all weapons except for a specific sub-weapon, and make it so when you get to the boss, if you didn't have that sub-weapon, you couldn't win. But I doubt they'd ever be that evil. And if they have, I can't think of any examples. think I jumped that high, but apparently I'm overestimating, underestimating at the same time when it comes to things like this. Could they make this more obvious? I mean, really? When it comes to Castlevania games, another good one is Order of Alicia, however you pronounce it. It's a bit different the way it works, but it's good to mix things up a bit on occasion. Plus, it has a pretty epic final boss tune. Speaking of which, that would be a good question. Which Castlevania had the best final boss tune? I mean, I like the symbolism of the final boss tune in this game. I'll get to that when I actually get to the final boss. But I kind of prefer the NES version in some ways. And of course, you also have the fact that certain tunes get repeated a lot. I mean, I think Illusionary Dance has been like several of them. Personally, I kind of like Banquet of Madness, from Portrait of Ruin, and Order of the Demon for Alicia a bit. Adventure Rebirth was kind of a frustrating experience. I died so many times in that. It's quite hard, but it's also satisfying when I finally beat that game. Although, I have to ask about the final boss room. Why do they give you weapons that you can't even use against the final boss? I mean, it's not like the watch ever works, and the holy water is gonna miss all the time. It just feels so trollish of them to do so. I hate these things. I always got the time and won on them, losing so many lives to it. Believe me, I was never that good at the Sweden parts. It'll be a miracle I'm good at this point, and we'll continue this later.